So we put this together for those of you who have received congressional discretionary funds. When you work with the department and you get federal funds, you work normally with the local aid office if you have a federal grant. And congressional discretionary funds come a different way. What we have been doing here is trying to better align what the congressional staff is doing through the governor's office. So the governor's office has a federal affairs unit or group that we've been working with. We've been working with Blaine Boyd, who's the senior director, and Julie Jochum, who's the director, and trying to better align how New Jersey goes after these federal dollars. So the goal is that everybody's able to deliver the project and complete it, and New Jersey benefits from that additional federal funding coming here. The problem is the disconnect when the MPOs, the DOT, were not aware of any potential federal funds that are coming in because you need us to deliver those projects. So we want to go through, make sure everyone understands what the process is, and hopefully allow everybody to move forward quickly and get these delivered because they do have tight time frames. Our commitment to you is if you work with us, we will help you do whatever we can to get this money spent and delivered, even if it's not what you think you're originally planning on doing with it. This is federal money. It has federal requirements. It's our job in local aid and project development to make sure that you guys follow all the federal processes. They're not our processes, they're the feds. It's their money. They get to say what the requirements are. So again, at the end, it's successful if we were able to utilize the funds and create a project that is beneficial to your communities. So the federal process is like a good book. If you try to jump to the end, you will ruin it. So if you are coming to this conversation with the thought that you are only here to get construction money, then we are here to burst that bubble. I am going to have Veronica go through the processes, so please pay attention as to the details of what we're talking about in the federal process. Veronica?
Thanks, Lane. Every federally funded project must follow the NJDOT project delivery process. What is that? There are 4 phases listed here that your project must follow: concept development, preliminary engineering, final design, and construction. Today, I'll focus a little bit on concept development because that seems to be the phase awardees are least familiar with. Before we design a solution, we must first understand what the problem is that we're solving and follow a course of action to get to design. So we can't start this process with a set of plans unless you can prove to us that you have done concept development, preliminary engineering, and final design. If you've done some work before, we'll say, okay, show us what you got. We'll evaluate what you have to see if you have all the tasks that are required and if you conducted those tasks within the federal standards, right? So we're not saying you have to throw everything out from the beginning, but we have to understand, and we will ask hard questions and you will need to provide the answers, right? So in CD, the key tasks, there are a lot of activities that you will have to perform, but the key tasks that are required in CD includes data collection. And why is data collection important? Data collection is important because when you establish your purpose and need, the data is the need, right? The data justifies that you have a problem that needs fixing. So there's data collection, we establish the purpose and need, we conduct outreach, very important. If you've never done outreach before, you're gonna have to start doing it now. There's an environmental screening of the study area that you guys have to do so we understand what the potential impacts are moving forward. alternatives are developed. Yes, so you submitted an application for a grant award and you said you wanted to do this project. But to follow this process, you're going to have to put that thought aside a little bit and think of literally 3 other alternatives or 2 other alternatives that you could think of to solve that problem. And usually we try to make it easy for you. There is a no build alternative, which means if you do nothing, you tell us what will happen if you do nothing, right? And then 2 others, the one that you're thinking you can do, or the one that we have helped you to determine that your funds will allow you to do, and something else that if you had more money, what would that alternative be? So right there, you have your 3 alternatives. So you develop those alternatives and there has to be some discussion, right? Describing these alternatives, then you select one. That would be your PPA. Once that is done, you go through the process. Your CD report has to be submitted for review, your alternative, your PPA reviewed by DOT staff. And if all is good, we say you are good to move on to the next phase. But looking at what's on the screen, what you're seeing on the screen, this describes a full scope project. But maybe after talking to you guys, understanding what you would like to do and the amount of funds that you have, it could be determined that you don't necessarily have a project that needs to fit into a full scope. Next, please. So then we can look at whether your project fits into a limited scope process. And what does this mean? This means that you don't necessarily have to do all the phases. In limited scope, you avoid preliminary engineering. You still have to do CD, and it might not be as detailed as a full scope CD, but you still have to do it. And you still have to do outreach. Standard still applies whether it's full scope or limited scope. Once you're done with CD, you're advanced to do final design, which everybody wants to get to, and then to construction. And I just want to make a point here that right now, the way our section is set up, the Bureau of Project Development works with you to get you through CD, to start your CD and complete your CD. Once your CD is done, we will hand you off to the local aid team, who I'm sure all of you have been working with on your municipal aid and other state-funded projects already. And they will guide you through the design phase, whether it's preliminary engineering, final design, and get you to construction.
So Veronica, we're working on previous year congressional discretionary grants now. Out of this 30 or so that you have, how many of them have actually done the limited scope process?
So I think most of them, we have been guiding them towards a limited scope. One, because the expectations that they started with, as you said before, we were not part of the project selection and the request for funding. Most of them, in order to avoid not getting some of the funds, we have steered them towards limited scope because it's a shorter path to authorization. So as you said before, they might have had to give up something, but at least they will be able to access some of the money. What we're finding, especially for limited scope, because some of the funds are just not enough to get you through CD design and construction, what we're encouraging folks to do, if they can afford it, and if the capability is in-house, we work with them to get them through CD. Because to go put out an RFP to select a consultant to do limited scope CD, it takes time, right? Here, time is of the essence. So we're working with teams. If they have in-house engineering team, we're working with them to do the CD in-house, and then we figure out how to get them through the other phases. But we do have some that have gone through and are doing full scope.
Yeah, and I just would caution that if you have right of way that you need, if you have environmental that you know is going to be complex, if there's significant utilities, none of those are going to be a limited scope project.
So before we go any further, let's just talk about these two dates. I'm not even worried so much on the expend date, but the obligation date. And this is the date you will hear my staff hammer on all the time, because this is the date that we're tracking. You have to obligate or have your funds authorized by your obligation date. So if we're looking at the obligation date is typically 3 years after the funds have been awarded. And when the funds have been awarded, the minute DOT gets that letter, or you get a letter notifying you that you got those funds, the clock starts. So the clock doesn't stop for you to figure out what you really want to do. You want to do this? Do you want to do resurfacing? Do you want to do drainage? We have to get to that solution really, really quick so that we can get the work and you can get your funds to do whatever task you wanted to do, whether it's design or to get you to construction. So this is something that you're going to hear us talk about a lot. We will help you. We will start with a schedule to get to this point. This is what you're going to have to do, and this is what you're going to have to submit on this date. We typically start out with that. So we'll give you an initial schedule, and we're gonna have to hold you to that.
Yeah, so again, those are federal dates. There's no wiggle room. It's either you do it or you don't, whether you lose $1 million or $15 million. There's no extensions. Those are the requirements of the funds. So how does the money work? So if you have not done a federal project before, the important point you need to know is that the funds are reimbursed. You cannot spend anything, you cannot draw down on anything until you have an agreement in place with DOT that allows you access to the funds. And then once you submit invoices with all the required supporting documentation, DOT processes that and pays you the invoice, which then you can pay back the contractor or designer. Again, this has to all be set up and in place before you direct anybody to do anything. Do not start any work without an agreement in place. We will not refund or provide funding for anything that was done before an agreement is in place. So if cash flow is a problem for you, I would recommend you reach out to the iBank. And this is contact information for those folks. So the iBank provides low interest rate loans. And while clearly your town or county can do bonding as well, you will get a better rate at the iBank. The iBank is given funding every year through the budget process, so they're able to provide a lower rate, and they will do cash flow for you. They can do little amounts or big amounts. And basically what they have been offering is half of the AAA bond rate. So it is a better deal to go through the iBank. There are some fees you do have to pay, but that's just for your consideration. And as Veronica mentioned earlier, maybe you don't have enough money for the project. Again, because this is congressional discretionary and it was done outside of the DOT and outside of the MPOs, we do not have funding for you. We cannot aid in funding these. If we see a project advancing and the funding is short, you can certainly ask the MPO, you can certainly ask DOT if there's any funding available. But we do not have the capacity to assist 30 projects that we have not been in the loop on at all. So that's just a word of caution there, and the iBank could fulfill that need if necessary. So a little bit about the federal standards. Veronica mentioned consultant procurement. So you are required to follow the Brooks Act. You cannot use any cost-based analysis in a selection of a consultant. So if you do have a big complex project and you need to do a full scope CD, then our recommendation would be that you use the federal funds to do the planning process and hire a consultant. It does have to go through all the typical federal processes. It has to be advertised for a certain amount of time. It has to be a quality-based selection. And that's why, in order to try to get these further along, we do encourage that either if your staff or you have a consultant that you can pay just to do this, as long as they conform to and meet all the federal requirements, you can get through that phase of work. Environmental, again, it's federal money. You have to meet all the federal requirements. And if you've already designed the project, then you have not followed any of the things that Veronica was talking about, you have not met that. ADA is required. Buy America is required. These are all things that you have to know going in ahead of time. If you're going to buy a bench to put alongside the roadway, that bench has to be American made and meet the Buy America standards. If you put a screw in a bridge, it has to meet the Buy America standards. And civil rights as well has normally been something that's tripped up a lot of local entities. Right now, the status is that the federal government has changed the way we're required to produce these civil rights requirements. So basically, until the federal government approves our process, we've been going with a zero goal, because right now we don't have an approved process. At some point in the future, we will have a new process and there will be goals that you'll be required to meet. But at this time, the guidance is not in place to make that happen. So Veronica, you want to talk a little bit about that first meeting and how we evaluate these and get people going?
Yes. So, and you should probably start thinking about this now after this meeting. Is your project ready? We will evaluate the information you provide us for readiness, right? Do you understand the problem that you're trying to solve with this project? It can't be everything and the kitchen sink, right? Because you have to establish a purpose and need. We talked about data collection. Your purpose and need must be defensible, meaning you should have support in data that this roadway needs to be resurfaced. It can't be I think or I feel, right? You should have, whether it be pictures, any other data that you're collecting, measuring rideability, roughness, whatever, right? All of that information will be required. So if you think you don't have the data you're going to need, you should start thinking about it now, so that when we meet with you individually, we will continue that conversation. But these are some of the things you should start considering. And this is just based on lessons learned, right? To go back to that letter that you submitted to the to Congress for this grant. I like to see what exactly did you put in that letter so that we can know for sure what the project limits are and what you said you were going to use the money for, because that is how we determine the project scope. We can change the scope. We can work within the limits of what you said you were going to do. We can reduce some of the tasks, some of what you hope to achieve, but we can't go outside of those limits. We can add more things to it. Lane mentioned consultants. We'll also discuss with you how you can do the work, whether you have the capacity in-house to do it, or if you need a consultant to do it. And, you know, we talk about time frame to do certain things and how you would get all of that done and get to your authorization date. Lane mentioned constraints such as right-of-way and environmental issues. We need to know all of these things up front, right? Everything you do not tell us when we ask you delays the project, because if we're finding out things that we should have known 6 months into it, that's a problem. I know that a lot of you are not used to doing outreach on the projects that you probably do for local aid. This is different. This is a different animal. We have to show the feds that we've done some outreach. We will certainly try to assist you in right-sizing the outreach that you would need for your specific project and work within what we know you have, right? Do you have a project? Do you have a website, a municipal website? We'll use that as best as we can to inform the public that you are doing this project. I know a lot of you typically have council meetings. Let's see if we can use the council meeting as a public meeting, so to speak, that will meet our needs, which means you're going to advertise it. You're going to, it can't be just a meeting to the council. If the council is 6 people, that's not a public meeting. So if you can get more people to attend that, hear you speak about the project, give them the opportunity to have conversation with you and ask questions, then that could be an acceptable format for a public meeting. So these are some of the things that we will help you achieve as we move forward with your project. So project readiness helps us to determine your project path based on your scope. Do you need to do a full scope or a limited scope? Are you going to use consultants? What is a realistic time frame that you have to get all you need done? And basically decide how my team is going to help you move forward. Lane talked about funding. One of the other things that you're going to have to do is to consult your MPO. So we have invited Vanessa Krogan-Kramer from NJTPA to talk about NJTPA's TIP process, but most of this will apply to any MPO. Contact your personal MPO to have this conversation. Vanessa?
Okay, great. Thanks, Veronica. So yeah, I just wanted to take a minute to introduce myself so you can put a face with a name and get some understanding of how the MPOs are involved in this process. So I work for NJTPA. So if you're a recipient of a competitive or congressionally directed spending grant within our 13 county region, which is from Sussex down to Ocean County, highlighted in this slide, you'll want to reach out to me and my group. And as Veronica said, there's 2 other MPOs. So if you're looking for the SJTPO region, that's Alice Gibson or Rick Murphy for DVRPC, or you can just reach out to me and I'll point you in their direction. So to start, In order to authorize the funding on your project and utilize the money awarded to you, you'll need to get it programmed on the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, first. So there's some basic information about your project that we'll need to assign a unique number, or DB-num, with NJDOT. To get to this step, there are a few things that we need to check first. So one of them is it already a part of the appendix of NJTPA's TIP. So if your project is already listed in our TIP appendix, and you can click on the link in the presentation to look, or just reach out to us directly, we can obtain your DB-num and process your request relatively quickly as an information mod. The hurdle becomes if we haven't been made aware of your awarded project and it hasn't been included in our appendix. So if that's the case, your project is considered new, which would be an amendment, and that means it has to jump through all the hoops of being introduced and voted on at one of our board meetings. Since we typically only have 6 board meetings a year, that creates sometimes months of waiting to prepare the board documents, present it for vote at the meeting, and then wait for the required governor's veto period to expire. So the best thing to take away from all this is to start the conversation with us early. Reach out when your project has been awarded and just start talking to the MPOs. For NJTPA, we'll provide you a form with all the required information that we need, description of project, phases and amounts, and some other basic information so that we can start the process of getting the project programmed in eSTIP for you. Thank you for your time, and feel free to reach out to me at any point with any questions.
So yes, this is Vanessa's information. I think when we get to the end there, I think there's some folks from SJTPO. Celia, we could probably turn the camera on and the mic, and we can have them add any information they would like to share on their region.
In addition to getting your federal congressional discretionary grant, I'm making up words now. You also have to go through the process, which we call eligibility assessment. So again, NJDOT through local aid is responsible for ensuring that any local entity that is accepting federal funds through FHWA has to be evaluated, and you have to show that you have financial controls, you're adequately staffed and ably equipped to manage and be responsible for the requirements of federal funds. Everyone has to go through this. If you have not done it, the first time is onerous. If you've done it before, this is kind of a breeze for those of you who have done it. So this will be the first thing that you need to do in addition to your kickoff meeting. So when Veronica talks about kickoff meetings, she can also direct you as to how to reach out to local aid to start the eligibility assessment process. And it takes as long as your entity takes, right? You're going to have to submit things. We're going to have to review it. You're going to have to demonstrate you have policies and procedures in place. So it may be some work on your end, but we'll try to make it as painless as possible. Responsible charge. So every federal project requires a responsible in charge of the project. Who is that? It must be a full-time employee of a municipality or a county. It cannot be a consultant. Can you have a consultant assist the responsible charge? Yes, but they can't do everything, and they're only going to help you probably get things prepared behind the scenes. It's literally the employee must be the responsible charge. We've gone back and forth with FHWA. We've tried to ask them to allow part-time, and they will not budge on that. Does the person have to be an engineer? No. As a matter of fact, in some municipalities, we have found that someone who's coming to us through the financial office is actually better equipped to understand the requirements of the funding and make sure that it's overseen properly. We also have a lot of public works directors who do it, and those largely don't tend to be engineers either. So it depends on how your entity is set up. And is training required? Absolutely. So go to the next slide. The training is free. It's done through
Kate.
Rutgers Kate. And these are the training courses that you would have to take, including the responsible charge training. So we've been working with FHWA to update the responsible charge training, and we are currently in the process of scheduling those for July. So once we have dates for the responsible charge training, it'll go up on the Resource Center website, and you'll have access to that information. And again, you'll be reminded that you must have an employee as the responsible charge as a requirement for the federal funds.
What's going to happen after this webinar ends? You will be contacted by Alyssa. And Alyssa will say, I need some dates to schedule a one-on-one meeting with the project development team to discuss your project. So every grant recipient, all 16 or 17 of you, will have a one-on-one meeting with us. I strongly encourage at that time that whoever you're thinking of being your responsible charge should attend that meeting. Your financial people should attend that meeting. Your mayor should attend that meeting, because everybody in your organization needs to hear how this project needs to proceed and what the risks are if you do not follow the federal process, or if you don't get to the end point in time and lose all your funds. So the first meeting is really going to be important. I encourage you to get on our schedule as soon as you are contacted by Alyssa. Once we get the kickoff meeting off the ground, then my project managers can start working with you individually. Please come prepared to these meetings. Bring something to show me. Plan to pull up a Google map and show me where your project is. Have some knowledge or understanding of the project location. You know more than we do. Based on what we've experienced during the 23 round and the 24 round that we're working on right now, I am going to start recommending a field trip with your team and my team to help determine the project scope. It gets things done faster than us sitting in these meetings and going back and forth. Well, I think it is this, and let's just go out in the field together and determine what needs to be done. My team will help you decide whether what you're thinking of can actually be accomplished. As we said, we talked about the responsible charge. And as Lane said earlier, look, we're happy that all of this funds is coming to New Jersey. And our goal is really here to help you to make good use of those funds. So let's work together to get this done. I love all of these projects. The only thing I don't like is the stress that comes with it. So please, you're going to have to cooperate. I can't say that enough because I live it every day. All right. But my team and I are really excited to work with you and help you achieve your goal and complete a successful project. So that's all I have for now. Celia, let's see if there's anybody from SJTPO who would just like to share a little information.
I just want to again reiterate that we are now trying to work with the governor's office, the federal affairs team. So if you're reaching out to DOT in the future to ask for a support letter for one of the congressional discretionary grants, we are trying to weed out those that we can see have already been designed, and the expectation is you're just giving us construction money, because that's money New Jersey's going to lose. We've had, as Veronica alluded to, several rounds with some communities that insist to us that we're wrong, and that we should just give them the money for the construction. And 3 years later, they find out they do not have the funding. So again, we are encouraging everyone who pursues these kind of funds to reach out to your MPOs, reach out to DOT, reach out to the governor's office, federal affairs team, because we do want the projects that can get built, right? And we do want to support them. There are other states where if you get an earmark project, the state does nothing to help. And that's a waste of money. We don't want to do that. This is unanticipated work for us, but it's to the benefit of the state, and we all want to try to make sure that we can use the money, even if it's only 2/3 of the funds. We'll try to find a way to do that.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, it wouldn't unmute when I was trying to click
That,
it. So.
that's okay. That's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I've been in touch with all of our sub-regional partners. I see someone today at Cumberland County, Pleasantville, and Atlantic County. So they have all of my contact information, and I'm sure we'll be reaching out shortly to move forward. But thank you.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Thanks, Alice.
Yep, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, Celia, are we going to do the Q&A?
Yes, I do not see any questions. Oh, someone's raising their hand. If you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question, that works.
Yes, Melvin Waldrop with City of Newark. You had indicated that when you come for your meeting, you would like for the mayor to be at that meeting, and I was just inquiring whether or not it would be possible if our mayor can't make it, our business administrator can be there in his stead.
Yes, and these meetings we usually have virtual, but yeah, I understand your mayor can't be there. What I'm really trying to emphasize is that this can't be just the responsibility of the engineer. Everybody needs to know that this is happening and that there are certain responsibilities, especially if you're looking at a funding situation. If you don't have enough funds, the other thing that we probably didn't discuss enough, Lane, is that as far as the feds are concerned, they want to see this project funded from CD through to construction. And if you only requested funds that can only take you to design, Vanessa and Alice needs to show in the tip where the remainder of the money is coming from to get you through to construction. So I appreciate your question, but I really just wanted to emphasize that this is something larger than just the responsibility for your engineer.
Thank you, guys. You guys did a fabulous job explaining all of the nitty-gritty details, which we know that there very much is. I know some of our recipients were indicating they hadn't received that letter, and you indicated during your meeting that as soon as you get that letter, that clock starts. Do you know what the expectation is for the letter? Is it being held off on purpose so as to not to start that clock? Because right now, I think some of them have only been aware of it because we've told them.
Right. So that's a default on the federal government. I'm going to put it on them.
I wasn't blaming you guys.
Great,
Well,
they issued the money, but they didn't follow up to notify their recipients that the funds are here. So we do, as a courtesy, we can provide something to each agency. Lane?
Yeah, so I was just going to say that's something we're going to try to work with the congressional offices about, because I think they would love to send letters out to acknowledge this. I'm not sure why they don't. But again, we weren't the ones that provided the funding, so it's a little bit weird for us to provide the letter, but we will certainly do that if you request. We have people who, for their financial reasons or whatever, need a letter. We will compose a letter for you if needed. But just so you know, literally what happens is when Congress passes the budget and it gets signed, it's a line in the budget. And what we do and what the MPOs do, we go look in the budget to see what's listed there, and that's how we're informed. So,
hello, this is Diane. So we received a grant from FHWA. We are in the process of doing the negotiations for the consultant. We've been dealing directly with FHWA for all approvals, but I'm asking, does the state want to be involved in that project to ensure that we can get the design funds for the next phase?
So, yeah, with all the different things that came out of the IIJA or the bill, the previous federal budget, there's different ways now to receive federal funds. And part of their solution to getting money to the locals was for USDOT to provide a number of grants that go directly to the locals. So those ones, like you said, you're working with FHWA. So this is actually new for FHWA to actually provide the actual oversight of their money. And a lot of the federal offices were not equipped to do that. I think I will speak on behalf of both DOT and the MPO. We like to know what's going on and be aware of it. And so if it does become something down the road that you might need assistance with, we would like to know about it. But there's a lot of work out there, and this one's on FHWA.
Okay, thank you.
I do see in the chat, we also had some questions about if the meeting recording will be provided in addition to the slide presentation.
So we have another session to do next week. So maybe after we're done with that one.
And if there's someone in your entity that maybe you want to recommend it to, just have them sign up for next week's. Well, I would just say if you have any technical difficulties, you can just forward your question to the Resource Center and we'll get back to you if you want an answer before your kickoff meeting gets set up. Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending, and let's hope we can get some really good work done out there and have successful projects.
Yay. Thank you all.
Thank you.